Start us off.
Okay.
Um, all right. I know folks are filing in into the room, into our webinar. I want to thank everybody for taking time out of their busy Sunday to be with us tonight. As always, Women with Black Men is hosting our brother briefings every Sunday to chat with Black men not only around the country, but in your own home, in your own community, about what's happening on the ground. Not only since May 5th, but we've been working really hard over these last few years to really engage a series of brothers. So whether that means you are Greek or not, whether that means you went to college or graduated high school or went to a 2-year community college, our goal is to engage as many Black men as we possibly can to be a part of this civic process and turn out in this upcoming election. So I am immensely grateful and excited to have two amazing stalwarts on with me this evening. Congressman James E. Clyburn from South Carolina, and Congressman Stephen A. Horsford from the West Coast. I want to say it right, Nevada. All right, I gotta get it right.
Nevada.
So, and I know President Morial from the National Urban League is going to be joining us in just a second, so he can join this conversation on voting rights to make sure we get it kicked off right. But I think as we were talking just in the green room a moment ago, what just happened in South Carolina was historic. And so, Congressman Clyburn, for those brothers that don't know, those brothers who are just joining in right now, give us a little bit of lay of the land. We saw something was happening in the state legislature, but between your amazing magic, it stopped. What happened?
Well, thank you very much for having me, and thank all of you for doing this. I hope Mark will join us soon. I've known him for years, and to date myself, knew his dad very well. I'm also pleased to be here with Steve Horsford. I have not known him quite as long, but just as well. I'm looking forward to being out there with him in a few weeks. What happened here in South Carolina was a critical aspect of what's going on in this country. You've got a White House in place that has been systematically using people and things to impose their philosophy, their political philosophy upon this country. And it's philosophy that's grounded in what I call antebellum thought. That is the thought that people had previous to the Civil War. And during Reconstruction, a group of people formed themselves called the Redeemers. And they existed to return the South, basically, back to its pre-Civil War ways. And they developed some plans to do that. One was the Edgefield Plan. Now, at the Democratic Convention in Chicago, when I spoke, I equated Project 2025 to Jim Crow 2.0 because I had read Project 2025, and I've also read the so-called Edgefield Plan that was developed to bring an end to Reconstruction. And I saw the parallels. They were there. And so I appealed to people in South Carolina along those lines. And the people in the state legislature, not all of them, but most of the Republicans also saw that this state was being used because the Supreme Court 2 years ago looked at the South Carolina plan for redistricting and said that it was constitutional. That was from the United States Supreme Court just 2 years ago. And this White House decided, we don't care whether or not it's constitutional. We want you to redo it. And so that was an insult to a lot of members of the legislature. So rather than try to carry what I thought was a personal kind of emotion to this issue, I decided that we would approach this based upon the pride that I know South Carolinians and this legislature had in the work they had done over a 2-year period to produce a plan that had passed constitutional muster. And so I would say to all of our listeners, this is what happens when people ignore local thought, ignore local relationships. In fact, when they sent that plan down here from Washington, they spent 7 minutes and 40 seconds, I believe it was, on a virtual meeting with the legislators, and then told them they would not be taking any questions and had to go to another meeting and would not answer a single question the legislators had for them. That insulted a lot of the leadership of South Carolina. I got with one of my political advisors that Steve Foster knows so very well, and we decided that we would challenge what they were doing, not so much on what the Constitution may have said or what we may have felt, but what insults had been visited upon them by the Trump White House. And the Trump White House, in my opinion, is using these southern states in an insulting way to carry out their pre-Civil War ways, their antebellum ways. And South Carolina decided it was not going to have anything to do with it. So we'll see what happens, because they're going to come back the day after the primary, and maybe they'll look, because nothing has been said about the state Senate or the state legislature. So I don't think this is over, just over for this election over the next 2 years.
That's fair. And so, Congressman Horsford, as you're hearing what's happening in the South, how could we see this start making its way west? How should brothers prepare for their family members that live out west, what they're seeing in the South, potentially coming out there?
Well, first, thank you, Khalil. It's great to be on, and thank you to all the brothers that are on as well. And you know, it's so important with Win with Black Men that we have this time to talk about where our voices really need to be lifted up in this moment. And I want to start by lifting up this champion of a man, Congressman Jim Clyburn, who I have been mentored by and who has shown us what it looks like to not just protect Black political power, but to expand it. You know, I cannot underestimate what he just did in South Carolina. The fact that despite this administration and Republicans all across the South trying to dilute Black votes, Congressman Jim Clyburn and all the other people who stood up and organized and testified, we pushed back and he won. He didn't settle. He didn't compromise. He made sure that not just his seat, but the people that he represents continues to have a voice. And I think that that is so instructive for what we have to do going forward. So first, I just want to say thank you, Mr. Clyburn, because you're not just talking it, you are living it. And you are an example for all the rest of us to continue to follow. In addition to the fight in South Carolina, we have a fight in Alabama with Shamari Figures. We have a fight in Missouri with Emmanuel Cleaver. We still have the decision that has come out in Louisiana, where they have taken one of the two Black majority districts there, affecting Representative Cleo Fields. We're still waiting for final impact in places like Florida. So this is affecting us all across the country, as you said, Khalil. And part of what I think the example that South Carolina shows us is when we are organized, when we are strategic, we can push back and we can win. The Alabama case, we're not silent there either. And as a result, it's now being, it could very well mean we could protect Shamari Figures if that district isn't returned to the 2023 map as the courts have attempted to do. But we have to stay vigilant. That is really what I want to say in this moment. We have to stay organized, and we have to communicate with one another. I'm here in Nevada, and my district here in Congress is one of the 30 most competitive districts in the country. I don't have a majority Black district. I have a majority white electorate, but it's the type of district and state where a Black representative like me can be elected. That is not the case in other districts around the country. I'm the first Black to be elected to Congress from Nevada, but we have to make sure I'm not the last. In Nevada, we also have the opportunity to elect the first state governor, first African-American governor, I should say, from Nevada, my brother, my friend, Aaron Ford. And this is one of two states where there are incumbent Republicans who are at risk of losing, but it's going to take all of us to win, not only my district, but to win the governor's office here in Nevada. And that means it's going to take the organization, the leadership, the ingenuity, and all of us leaning in. If I could, Khalil, I just want to also say, this is about Black political power, but I also believe this is about Black economic power. Because a lot of what I'm hearing, particularly from young Black men, is that they want to know what it is we're fighting for, not just what we're against, and how there are the same forces who are trying to dilute our political power are also trying to take away the tools of opportunity that Black men and Black families need to thrive. And that is something that I think should be at the forefront of what we talk about as Black men.
You read my mind, Congressman Horsford. So I think the conversation that we always ask here, and given the research that we saw not only from Hit Strategies and Black Men Vote recently on polling of young Black men and young men, how should we relate this message of what's going on with this attack on voting rights and why they should turn out to vote? What is the message that you would give to a 22-year-old self in South Carolina or in Las Vegas or in Reno right now saying, we need you to vote this November? What's the message that you would share with them, Congressman Clyburn and Congressman Horsford?
Well, I will begin by reminding people of the record. As Steve will tell you, I spend most of my time researching the issues that we are confronted with today, trying to look for the historical foundation upon which these issues are built. And I don't have to go back far to show people how important history is to what we do. Let's just take a few years back when a very important question was asked that Black men especially reacted to in a very, I call, sort of a historic way. What have you got to lose? That question was asked. What have you got to lose? So I would say to young Black men, to older Black men, and to everybody, compare your situation today with what your situation was at the time that question was asked by our sitting president when he was running the first time. Well, what have you lost? We have lost all student loan debt forgiveness. That to me was a critical aspect of what we were doing. And here we are, having lost that. We have lost economic power with our inability to now purchase. I'm understanding that 45 years old is the average age of first-time home buyers. That, to me, is critical. I was able to get a toehold, as we say down here in the South, when my late wife and I bought our first house at the age of 24. And by the time I was 45, I had the equity of that house that I can now pass on to my children and grandchildren. That's what we have lost. And that's what we will continue to lose. Now, I agree with Steve. We have to show people what is in it for them, what is in it for families, their families, and what is in it for their communities when they vote for Democrats. We got to show them that. And we got to compare that with what we are witnessing, experiencing today. In the past, William Shakespeare wrote centuries ago, is prologue. Don't ever forget that. The past is prologue. And we have got to face the future this year, in this November. With that in mind, we cannot ever approach another election just saying, oh, that is so-and-so being so-and-so. We'll be here today, oh, that's Trump being Trump. Well, I don't think so. I think there is a big coordinated effort. Why else would the Supreme Court of the United States of America give this man almost complete immunity for anything he's doing in office? Why would this Supreme Court hand down decisions that gut the Voting Rights Act of 1965? That is what we've got to lose. And that's what we're losing. We can reverse that this year if we show up in record numbers come November. I don't want to take away too much from Steve, so I'm going to stop now, but I can give you a litany of other things that we have lost with this administration. And I'm going to close to tell you, here's what's next. The very first thing this administration started out with was to call into question birthright citizenship. The 14th Amendment was put in place to respond to the Dred Scott decision that said no Black man has any right that a white man must respect. That was a Supreme Court decision back in the 1850s. That's what we've got to lose, birthright citizenship, because this administration is now asking this Supreme Court to take a look at whether or not birthright citizenship should be modified. What happens if this court were to do that? And so it's still a question to be answered. What have you got to lose? Voting Rights Act. Now it could be birthright citizenship because that question is before the Supreme Court right now.
Congressman Warford, how do we engage young Black men? And then we got a question from the chat we're going to go to, but want to get your perspective on how we should engage young Black men.
Yeah, well, I think in this moment, young Black men want to know what's in it for them. And that's not about party. That's not about partisanship. That's about their pocketbook. They want to know, can I afford a home? Can I provide for myself and my family? If I have a good idea and I want to start a business, will I have the access to capital or the contracts that I need to start and grow a business? If I'm older, can I retire with dignity? Will Social Security and the promises that have been made be there for me as it was for generations before? And a big thing that I think a lot of us as men, particularly young men, want to know is, can I leave something better for my children than what I inherited? This is a generation of young people who feel like they may not make it as far as previous generations have. And when you talk about the freedoms and the rights that are under attack, particularly in this moment, and that are being eroded or diluted, I think those are all legitimate questions and rightful cynicism that young people, Black young men, absolutely share with me. So I think this is largely the economic agenda of work, wages, and wealth, an agenda that's focused on increasing wages, helping people get the skills and the training that they need, um, whether that's for a career, whether that's through an apprenticeship, whether that's going to college and entering a profession or starting a business, particularly with technology and AI and all of the new disruption that's happening there. Um, I hear from a lot of young men that have started their own business or are entrepreneurial in their approach. They don't want to work for somebody else. They want to work for themselves and create wealth for themselves. And so I think having an agenda that talks specifically to Black men around Black ownership and how they acquire access to capital and contracts and opportunities is something that we should be talking about as Black men. And quite frankly, we need to push the Democratic Party to center these issues in what they talk about. I think the party gets it wrong when they don't listen to Black men because we do have a point of view. It's just they don't listen enough to our point of view and include it in what the overall agenda should be. So if you're going to talk about affordability, talk about it in terms that actually affects Black men. And finally, Black men, we care about healthcare. We care about childcare. I'm part of the sandwich generation where I have 3 college-age kids, 2 that are in college, and a mother who recently had some healthcare issues. And so elder care is also increasingly important for those of us that are in the sandwich generation. So these are the type of issues and agenda that focuses on creating opportunities, that addresses the real problems that Black men are facing today, and that also give a nod to the next generation of Black men who need to lead, whether that's in sports or entertainment or in business and technology. And I think that we should be centering those priorities. And that's why Win with Black Men is such an important conversation.
Well, we've just been joined by one of our other panelists, President and CEO Mark Morial. We've been getting a good conversation going, and one of my fellow co-hosts, Quentin James, is also here. I know he was just at the Fish Fry on Friday. But President Morial, as we're listening to some amazing feedback and guidance from Congressman Clyburn, getting some leadership from Congressman Horsford, what are you hearing on the ground as we're engaging Black men, not just young, but also old and in between? How should we be moving this conversation forward at this moment?
I think, thank you very much, Khalil. And it's always good to be on Win with Black Men. And I want to thank you and the others who have begun these conversations. I was just in Louisiana a week and a half ago testifying before the Louisiana House of Representatives on the congressional reapportionment issue there in Louisiana. And as you know, I served in that body in the 1990s, the Louisiana Senate. And my father was the first African American to serve in the Louisiana legislature since Reconstruction. So I took the members of the committee and the members in the hearing room back to 1968 and told a story, of course, that my father, the first African American to serve in that body, I would go up and spend several weeks with him as a 10, 11, and 12-year-old. The second year he was there, he proposed a blood delabeling bill. Louisiana had a law in those days which prevented white blood from being transfused into a black person and black blood from being transfused into a white person. So he offered a bill to delabel blood. During the debate on the bill, a member of the House of Representatives, and this is apropos to the time, went to the mic and began yelling the N-word repeatedly. That he would never, until the day he dies, allow any N blood in his veins or in the veins of others who were white. I told that story because after tremendous progress in Louisiana, achieving 2 Black congressional seats and 30 plus members of the Louisiana legislature from those days when there were none and then one, that the moment that we're in absolutely is a effort to turn the clock backwards. And I think that Black men and Black people, and not only Black men and Black people, but others who are fair-minded, understand the moment that we are in. Our job today is to channel that anger, to channel the sense of disrespect, the sense of the seizing of our birthright. Our birthright is our right to vote and our power for no other purposes than just raw power and raw white grievance that's taking place in the country. We need to unite the Black community, plus our allies, in this fight for democracy and this fight to vote. We have an enemy, and that enemy is complacency. And that enemy is cynicism. And that enemy is division. And we in this generation have to recognize that there are enemies without and there's enemies within that can derail the work that we need to do today. African American men are now facing rising unemployment since the 47th president has taken office. We've seen the Black unemployment rate for men and women go from just over 4% all the way up to in the sevens, maybe approaching the eights. The harm, the damage, the impact is real. The impact of the cuts to health care have not yet fully been realized from the big ugly bill, but will soon be realized as these slickos backloaded these cuts to try to shield them from impact during these elections. The mid-decade redistricting combined with the Supreme Court and what you see particularly in the South is absolutely outrageous. It is morally wrong. We have to call it out. And we have to send a message both with our voice and with our vote constantly and continuously. We are in survival mode when it comes to the damage that can be done now and the impact it will have on our sons and our daughters, our grandsons and our granddaughters. And that is what I hope that what we're doing today with Win with Black Men and all of the other activations is a wake up call to act. Look, I got into a discussion with someone who was rather intelligent around democracy. This person is very concerned about education and education policy, and he asked me, "What did voting rights have to do with education?" I said, "Don't you understand that Brown v. Board was about education? Don't you understand if we don't have voting rights and we don't have a seat at the table, we can't impact and shape education funding levels, education policy?" What happens in public schools, which happens in universities, which happens in HBCUs. If we don't have the right to vote, we don't have a voice, we can't impact public policy. We have to help people understand that having a conversation about affordability is not separate from the conversation about democracy and voting rights, that they go hand in hand, and that voting rights is foundational to any discussion about the economy, about education, about health care, about criminal justice reform, about police reform. All of these issues are impacted because elected officials call the shots. They call the shots in America along with people that have money. So in this moment, I think we as Black men have to lead. We have to use our voice. We have to be organized, and we cannot let this devil of cynicism and apathy creep into our community, and we begin just making a lot of excuses about why we cannot or why we should not or why we will not respond to this moment. And respond we must multiple ways. I want to highlight, spotlight, put a flashlight, whatever light we need on the necessity of turning out. And I want to, what we've seen in many places in some of the elections that have happened this spring is massive, significant increased voter turnout. We got to sustain that. We need Obama level turnout in these midterms, and we got to work like our lives depend on it, because they do.
President Morial, thank you, big brother. I know Quentin's here, and I know I want to get back to our two congressional members before
Yeah,
we go. We did have a question.
Thank you for allowing me to butt in.
No. This is why everybody is here. Quentin, I'm coming to you next, and then congressional members. We had a question in the chat. I'm trying to scroll back up because it was such a good one. While we are having a conversation right now about what's happening in Congress, how can we also discuss what's happening at the state house level? So I'm going to come back to both you, Congressman Clyburn and Congressman Horsford. But Quentin, jump in here, man. I know you were just on the ground in South Carolina at the fish fry. Give me some thoughts about what you're hearing.
No, thank you, Khalil. Thank you all for being here, brothers. It's great to be with these amazing leaders and men. I have to give it up again to my home state congressman, the legendary Congressman Jim Clyburn, who had thousands of people rallied in South Carolina over the weekend for his world famous fish fry. Also, the state party, their convention there. Where we saw a lot of energy. Like many of you all, our group chats changed last week. When we got the news that South Carolina was stopping their assault on our voting rights and an assault on Congressman Clyburn's district, and the fights that it took to get us to this place to have his representation. And so I'm motivated. I'm excited from what we're seeing on the ground. I think Congressman Clyburn left us with some really important messaging around what it's going to take each and every one of us to stop being silent. And to step up in this moment with our friends, our family, our communities to make our voices heard. And so I don't want to belabor the point, but just to say that people are waking up, people are getting organized. And so it's going to take men on this call to help lead that energy and to focus that energy. A lot of noise coming out of DC, out of the White House, that we want to stay informed about it, but we got to get it on the ground into our communities, register voters, inform them of when to vote, where to vote, how to go vote, and make sure that people are making their voices heard at the ballot box. That is where we're going to hold this madness accountable, is at the ballot box. And so stay focused on the goal, the prize there, whether it be your state's primaries or the November election. We got work to do, but that, we hear a lot. People say, voting's not enough, voting's not enough. I'm tired of just hearing about voting. We got to remember, at our height in 2012, which was the highest Black turnout we've ever seen for a national election, we were only at 69%, right? And we should be applauded for that. That's a good number, historic number, but we're not at 70%, 75, 80% turnout. If we can do that, things change dramatically in our communities, in our neighborhoods, in our states, in our country. And so let's not act like we've done everything we can at the ballot box, because we haven't. We have not maximized the Black vote yet. We've done a good job, made progress, but I don't want us to rest on those laurels. We got to dig in and stay focused on that. And so that's the only thing I wanted to add to this, Khalil. But again, thank you all for being here, and a lot of work to do over the next few weeks and months.
And thank you, Quentin. I think that's some feedback. I don't know if that's me. Want to bring that conversation back. So we're looking at the congressional races right now, Congressman Clyburn and Congressman Horsford. What does this mean at the state house level? What does this mean at your county council or municipal level? How do we take this from a national federal conversation and bring it to a local conversation? And then we've got Cameron Trimble from Huge Strategies, who's going to share what he's seeing on some disinformation. And I know we got just 10 more minutes with these three amazing leaders, but wanted to get that question to you, pop it over to Cameron, and then come back for one other. Congressman Clyburn, what about not just the federal, but how does this really get to the local?
Absolutely. I'm glad that question was raised. Look, we had, and thank you, Quentin, for showing up at the fish fry. I hope you got enough fish. We did not run out. I saw something in the chat that came up here, that we have no allies. That is not quite true. We have a lot of allies, and there are a lot of people who are waiting to see whether or not we are going to step up and do what we can do. When those Democrats in the state legislature decided they were going to hang together all 12 of the African Americans in the Senate refused to peel off when they were given opportunities, one or two of them to peel off and move forward. No, they hung all 12, voted together. And what happened? 12, eventually, it took a week, but 12 Republicans joined them to give the 24 votes they needed to stop this. 12 allies joined them. We did not pass the Affordable Care Act and would not have passed it if we did not have allies. But what we have to do is step up and coordinate our efforts and demonstrate that we're going to hang together in this, and you'll be surprised at the number of allies. Now, when I heard Mark mention someone saying, what has voting got to do with education? My goodness. Robert Smalls, born enslaved, became a member of the state legislature here in South Carolina. And he is the one that put up the bill or proposed the bill that created the first public education system for all in this country. Right here in South Carolina, a guy who had just gotten the right to vote, did not have an education himself, never got a formal education. Because he got the right to vote, he was able. And it was a Black majority legislature that gave us the free public education system. Voting is tied to everything. Now, let me close with answering your question. Quentin just talked about the 2012 historic election. Yes, that 2012 beat the 2008, which was second to 2012. In between that was 2010, when we had a big drop-off in voter participation. And what happened? We lost 1,000 legislative seats under Barack Obama's presidency. 1,000. Who draws these district lines? The legislature. When we lost those 1,000 legislative seats during Obama's presidency, that's when we lost the redistricting battle. And we must regain that. And we can regain that this November if we break the record in off-year, or we now call midterm elections. If we do that, it will arrest this cancer that has creeped in to our body politic. That's what it's going to take. It happened before. Go back and check how Newt Gingrich lost the speakership, because Newt Gingrich became speaker, promised the Republicans what he was going to do to make the Republicans a permanent majority, but Black voters showed up at the polls during that midterm election, voted in record numbers, and the next thing you knew, Newt Gingrich was driven out of town. We can do the same thing to this speaker this November if we show up in record numbers during this midterm election.
Thank you, Congressman Clyburn. Congressman Horsford, over to you. I'm managing the chat, so thank you, brothers, for what you've got putting in there. Greg Jackson, we see your comment. We're going to come to you, and then after Congressman Horsford, coming to Cameron Trimble.
Yeah, I just want to lift up and reinforce what Representative Clyburn said. So before the Voting Rights Act was signed and approved, there were approximately 70 to 72 Black elected officials nationwide. 15 years after the Voting Rights Act, around 1980, there were about 1,500 Black elected officials nationwide. Today, there are more than 10,000 Black elected officials nationwide. That is why the Voting Rights Act and its historic impact is so important, because this includes thousands of Black elected serving in local offices, in school boards, in city councils, county governments, state legislatures, in Congress. When the Voting Rights Act was signed in 1965, there were only 6 Black members of the US House. Today, there are 62. So what they are afraid of, the forces on the other side, is our power as Black people, as Black voters, and as Black men. And yes, this is bigger than just Congress. It is how the legislatures will ultimately be made up and whether or not they will be fair to drawing districts that are fairly represented. When voting rights protections are weakened, the impact doesn't stop at congressional districts. It reaches all across local, state, and federal office. And that is why, electing people like Greg Jackson in DC, or Will Jawando for county executives, or my Attorney General Aaron Ford here in Nevada, the governor, matter, because it matters who's in these positions. Not just for the person that is in it, but for the people that they represent and for the voices that they bring on the issues that we were talking about earlier, particularly around Black economic power that is also under attack and being diluted in this moment. So in context, we've gone from less than 75 to more than 10,000. But I'll also say this, Khalil, we can't get elected without the support of all of you. And that is where, as Black men, we do have to step up. There is more that we can do. And yes, we need organization. Yes, we need message. Yes, we need an agenda. But what it starts with is responsibility. And the responsibility is with each of us to do what we can with our family, with our community, in our local sphere of influence, to make sure that we are doing everything in this moment to push back. And no more excuses, no more diverting the attention and placing the blame somewhere else. I think it starts with all of us.
I couldn't have said it better. Cameron, I think you can share your screen really quick, brother. You had some disinformation slides that you wanted to share with some folks. I don't know if Cam can still hear me. Oh, there he is. Okay. Come off mute and we got you.
Hello, everybody. Cameron Trimble here, Huge Strategies, former director of digital engagement for the Biden White House. We at our firm and agency, we do deal with a lot of digital engagement, content creation, paid advanced paid media, but we also do a lot of sentiment analysis. And this is something, given the fact of the Black men that are online, there was another major study that just came out with Hit Strategies and Black Men Vote, I think was talked about last week. But there's been a lot of deep research about how we're actually getting online. And even though our feeds, because they're probably tuned to what we like, we don't realize how quickly the voting rights and redistricting information has faded from national and social media. Whether it be Google Trends and so forth. So it may feel like on your feed people are talking about it, but these trends have literally fallen off over 85% in the last 2 weeks. So it essentially is becoming an invisible issue online. But some of the new information that came out, there's been an 11-point shift in Black identification in Democrats, which is even if you're not here to necessarily promote Democrats, we do know we're not trying to push Black men toward Republicans, and that is a cause for alarm. But want to get over a couple things. There's a huge opportunity here. While over 90% of Black men believe voting matters, there's over 25% have realized they're not locked in, which means that's a huge opportunity there. But something that, because I wanted to make sure I gave some tactics that, whether you have an organization, you're an elected official, you're a candidate, or you're just a concerned Black man that wants to do something with what you have right now, which is probably whether you got 500 followers or 500,000 followers, whether you've got a budget or you got just an hour or two a day or hour or two a week to be able to do something. You've got to realize that most people are coming across their information through their feeds on their various social feeds. Now that changes based on age and state demographic, but on one of those social feeds, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, X, and Threads. It usually starts with YouTube first. I think that's something, and speaking definitely to the Congressman Clyburn and Congressman Horsford, and anyone who's running an organization, most of us tend to trend toward Facebook and Instagram or TikTok because it feels easy or a thing you want. But actually, the majority of men and the majority of black men are actually on YouTube. YouTube is much bigger. Also, it allows for more search. So there's a huge underinvestment in terms of consistent posting and building trust online there. That's where the majority of political news and where people are going to get some of their get that information. So
now, hold on a second. We're coming back because you got to come back later in a little bit in the show to really deep dive on this. Was there something that we could get the two congressional members to respond to really quick on either voting rights that you wanted to go to?
I just wanted the thing to talk about into encouraging both members and so forth is that this is something that has to be an everyday conversation, because like these are just some Google trends around redistricting and the Voting Rights Act over a month. This is just what's being seen on Google, YouTube, and social sentiment. As you see, these are trending down to almost nothing in terms of from a national perspective. So you may get on your Instagram or your Facebook feed and you're hearing it on the ground, but it's almost become invisible both in terms of national main media and definitely social media as well as talkers. So this is something that whether you're putting dollars behind it or you're putting voice and content behind it, you should be having something coming out literally every single day that other men using you all as trusted voices could then reshare across multiple platforms. Because I get in so many of those conversations where people feel like there's more momentum in there. I know there is on the ground, but not, like I said, 90% of us are getting our info on YouTube as black men. And if we're not seeing it and it's really actually not showing up nationally, then it's almost an invisible conversation. We're kind of just talking in a very small silo.
It's a fair point. Okay. So, Congressman, before we let you go, I think given we have Neil Carter, who was as one of the attendees tonight from the Black Consulting Group. What are some thoughts of how we can, and this is no comment on where the Democratic Party is right now. I think many of us will have other conversations about that. But what could we do as black men as we're trying to advocate for more of a space, get more resources to our communities? What advice could you give us to do that advocating? How can we make more noise so that more resources are deployed to engage black men, not just in September, but in July and in August, or maybe even in June? What are thoughts that we could take away to maybe help you or even help ourselves?
I'll yield to you, Steve.
It is absolutely time for us to demand more as black men. Demand more from the party, demand more from our elected officials, demand that there be a black men's agenda, an agenda that speaks directly to black men with the resources that are necessary on the ground to organize at a local level. Power doesn't start in Washington. It starts in neighborhoods and it starts in our communities. It starts with local leaders, where leaders actually earn the trust and build coalitions and learn how to deliver results. And so the more that we're in conversation and listening to those leaders on the ground, telling us what it is they need, then we can advocate on your behalf, whether it's through the National Party or other affiliates. Yes, we have an objective this November. We are working hard to make sure that we win the House of Representatives, that we are successful so that Hakeem Jeffries becomes the next Speaker of the House, the first black man who will be the Speaker of the House, which should not be lost on any of us either, but also that there's an agenda so that when we're in the majority, we're governing with an majority, with an agenda that speaks to the priorities that we as black men want to see. And that goes back to all the things that we talked about, from housing to entrepreneurship to better paying jobs to actually having investment in the things that matter to us. So yes, we need that to win, but after we win, we need to hold the power base accountable to deliver on the promises that got us our votes to begin with. So I look forward to continuing to work with all of you. I'm available as a resource, and I appreciate being on tonight with my friend, my mentor, the great legend, Mr. Clyburn.
Thank you, Congressman Horford. And I know you have to go, and Congressman Clyburn, coming to you, and then we'll let you two get back to your amazing evening.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Steve. I do associate myself with those comments, but let me just add this. Steve is so right. I want everybody to think about a couple of things. Number one, all the people following you on your social media platform, are they followers or are they trollers? I don't know how you tell the difference. We got to be very, very careful with buying in to all those hits and what's planted there. Number two, please, when this stuff shows up about how bad Jim Clyburn is, or how inefficient Steve Horsford is, do a little bit of research. I'm shocked at the number of things my daughters have brought to me over the last week. When I check the record, I see that all that I heard about Jim Clyburn just ain't true. We don't know who's putting that stuff out there. So do your own research on this. And finally, let me just say this. If we win this House back this November, the numbers are already there, the votes are already there to make Hakeem Jeffries Speaker of the House. You tell me that ain't gonna be an improvement over the Speaker that we currently have, who is not given an original thought since he's been there, who waits for the White House to tell him when to convene the House, when to send us home. That's what we've been going through. And so that in and of itself ought to be a basis for turning out in record numbers. So I'm going to thank you for allowing me to be here, but I wanted Steve to go first because I didn't want to give a history lesson and run all the time out. and by the way, I am going to get off because at 8 o'clock, I'm going to be on another virtual with all the African-American members of the South Carolina legislature as we plan our way forward. Because we're going to set up a redistricting account here within our party, not just for Congress, because Congress ain't the big deal, to cut this supermajority that exists in our House and our legislature so that we can have a more effective participation in our government going forward. So thank you all for letting me be a part of this. And Quentin, come on home to stay.
Thank you, Congressman Clyburn. Thank you, Congressman Horsford. We love you both. Thank you for taking some time with us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brothers, we're going to keep this conversation going. We've got a couple of good brothers who are hopping on. I am trying to make sure I get everybody out of the spotlight. Perfect. So it's just me and Quentin right now. We are going to bring up a dynamic brother who runs the Black Veterans Project, Richard Brookshire, who's been really doing some amazing work. I know we're going to have a host of candidates on. We've got a U.S. Senate candidate from South Dakota. Julian is on a panelist in here as well. We've got a couple others. I think a congressional candidate out of Maryland is going to be joining us. A fellow veteran is going to be coming in to talk to you, Richard, just a second. We've got my son, the general, on as well out of New York and New Jersey. Happy to hear from him. And then we're going to hear from Nicholas Oughton and Cameron Trimble to get some more feedback from what's happening not only in South Carolina, but about disinformation. Richard, thank you. I know I reached out to you this week and you answered the call right away. So appreciate you being here tonight and being able to share a perspective. We just finished Memorial Day. I know my grandfather served, my best friend, I know he's not watching, Darren Myers serves in the Navy currently. Wanted to bring your perspective, especially Black veterans' perspective. What is happening in the country right now? What are we seeing with voting rights? What are your thoughts? And we're going to have Rashawn Baker, who's running for Congress in Maryland. He's going to join as well as a retired member of the military to get into the conversation. But want to start with you. Tell us your thoughts and then tell everybody about the Black Veterans Project. Maybe start there.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. I think, like everybody was saying, we're in a really perilous moment by way of what's happening to our democracy. And Black Veterans Project is an organization that's been focused on building out a strategy for reparative justice, understanding that so much of the wealth that's been stripped from our community has been born out of inaccessibility to veterans benefits, really post GI Bill, post the inception of the GI Bill in the 1940s and into the present day, disparities in disability compensation that are continuing to proliferate and that are draining billions out of the Black community. And so our work has been working with legal partners to create cases, mainly Monk versus United States is the first big one that will hopefully become the first race-based class action against the Department of Veteran Affairs in its history. And some of our work was also to expose race-based data for the first time. The VA had actually never released race-based data in respect to access to benefits before, though. We have this long history, this kind of intergenerational history of inaccessibility to benefits. When I think of Black veterans and organizing, Black vets have often played a critical role in Black voter participation in the maintenance of our democracy since the inception of the military itself, but also when I think about like where some of the first gains of the civil rights movement were really made with Philip Randolph, winning victories in the 1940s that led to the integration of the armed forces, right? All these things are critical battlegrounds that are still being fought, and you have this particular administration that is propagating policies that are creating a hostile environment for Black folks to serve in, and that will have long-wielding implications not only for folks who wear the uniform into the future, but also for our democracy itself. Because I'm a deep believer in the fact that multiracial military is incredibly important for the maintenance of a multiracial democracy, and so that's the work that Black Veterans Project is mostly focused on.
So, and Quentin, jump in here. As you rightly so pointed out, the gains happened in civil rights. A lot of them started in the military. Maybe this is my own naiveness, and check me on this. My understanding and view is that a lot come we got Roland Martin. He just jumped on. I love it. We got more brothers joining. My naiveness is a lot of our members in the military happen to trend conservative and may vote more on one side more than one side than another. We're dealing with a lot of Black men who are trying to figure out, frustrated with the Republican Party because their lives necessarily aren't better than where they were 4 years ago, but are concerned about the Democratic Party because they're not seeing the same investment. What would you say to a young brother or an older brother who's on this Zoom tonight, or maybe listening in communities that are veterans or at the VA? How do you engage them to want to participate in the voting process?
Well, it's a great question. I think that what I would say to folks, I think that when you look at the policies that are being propagated by this particular administration, I think it's hard to try to legitimize in some way that there's an argument that there's a fair comparison between the parties, right? Like, I think that the Republican Party right now is dismantling equal opportunity in the military. You're having your policies that are being propagated that are, like I said, are creating a real hostile environment for Black folks to serve in with integrity. And so in my mind, I don't quite know where folks would land by way of defending that. And when you think about even the access to benefits in the VA, so much of what the Democratic Party was doing when they were in power was trying to expose the levels of disparities and to attack them head on. So we did a large FOIA effort that was able to expose race-based data for the first time. They also stood up an Office of Equity Assurance at the time, where they were trying to get to the root cause of what was what was driving many disparities. And when you talk about these disparities, not only just in access to disability compensation, but access to housing loans, to education benefits, and so on and so forth. that work was dismantled fairly quickly at the inception of this particular administration, and so that has unwielding repercussions for Black service members and Black veterans all across the country. How we get them engaged, I think, is, I mean, most of what you're doing now, right? We need to talk directly to folks. We got to let them know the nuances of what the policies are. I think some folks don't actually pay attention to the nuance of what's actually transpiring. It's lost in, right now we're in the flood the zone, and it's been like that for the better part of a year and a half. And so folks can't even keep up with so many of the changes. And I think what Cameron was speaking to by way of even, what's happening on the internet over the last 2 weeks with a drop off in actual discourse about redistricting and all of that, all of what's happening there. The same is true about what's happening at the VA relative to race-based policies and equity policies that have wide-reaching implications. Part of the work of Black Veterans Project has been to try to work with members of the media, obviously, in building out a membership model of our own to reach people and educate them on what's actually happening, because so much of that information is being lost, whether intentionally or not, because there's so much happening concurrently that's hard to keep up with. So I don't feel like a magic answer necessarily to how we activate folks. I think part of it is there's an education gap, right? And so just letting people know about what is happening and trying to keep them informed is a necessary first step.
Gotcha. Okay. Quentin, please jump in here if I'm missing anything. I'm trying to see what we got in the chat. Brothers, if you have a question, please go to the chat. I see an amazing dialogue. I know last week was interesting. We had a unique guest on from a completely opposite side of many of our thinking. What can we do, Richard, that could, at Win with Black Men, how should we engage veterans, Black veterans, differently? Like I know some of our tactics may be antiquated. What is a unique way that we should go and talk to the veteran community and educate some of us and some of the brothers that are in the chat and listening right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that veterans often, well, one, I'll say this, part of our mandate at Black Veterans Project is really to push forward a reparative movement, right? So when we think about just even inaccessibility to the GI Bill in the 1940s, there's somewhere between 12 to 15 million descendants of those World War II veterans, right? And those are many Black families come from, a legacy of service. And so it's about talking to your uncle, talking to your aunt, talking to your cousin who may have served and may feel invisible, right, in this moment. And so acknowledging, one, their service. I think two, veterans tend to congregate together. And so finding where they're congregating, there are a lot of historical Black American legions, veteran of foreign war posts, and ensuring that you are engaging with them where they are, where they congregate. And I think the last part is, the VA Black folks still access the VA at high numbers. And so whether or not you can get involved at your local veterans hospital or reach or canvas near the hospital, I think you're going to have an opportunity to engage more veterans that way as well. And so I think just making sure that you're having a holistic strategy to ensure that they're included. But I think many of us already know the answers. It's just about not rendering the service to the folks that we know in our families who may have served, and ensuring that the issues that they may be concerned about are reflected in any kind of broader strategy that we might have.
Thank you. Stephen Miller Pitts, who's out of Virginia, is writing. A lot of his buddies will come out if he stays on them. So veteran to veteran communication as a way. The common thing, but veterans are your current veterans, or veterans are your best organizers to engage veterans. So we've got to figure out how we're going to make this partnership work so that we can get more Black veterans to realize that, especially more Black male veterans to realize this is not just a one-side issue. We want to make this a big tent, so we're engaging others and bringing them out. Q, anything I forgot?
No, I mean, I think it's good. I think, my father's a veteran and we have these conversations a lot. Just his consistent feeling as if Donald Trump and the Republicans are obviously running amok of the historic respect our country has always had over the armed services. What that branch has really meant, all those branches meant to our country, the men who've served and died for our country. And so I think there's a lot of emotion there around what's happening with our armed services. And so I think Khalil and to you, Richard, this is an opportune moment for us to figure out how to direct that energy in this moment and organize it. And so we want to stand behind you, brother, and use your support to guide us and again, building that energy and directing it in the right place. Because again, we've talked about this previously around, as Black men, we gotta be healed. I think part of that healing is being able to say, when there are things that we do not like that are happening to our country and to our community, what we can do in response to that. And voting is one of those things, but also building our communities is another thing. And so, again, just thank you for being here, brother, and for your work. And we're going to stay close to you to figure out how to use that energy in these upcoming elections.
Thank you, Q, and really the gentleman I'm glad he's here, Rushern Baker. Yes, he happens to be my former boss and a mentor and a big brother, but happy to have him on, a retired veteran who served in Gulf War I.
Desert Storm.
Desert Storm. Okay. All right.
I'm not that young.
All right. Well, wanted to make sure the two of you as veterans could come on. Rushern, I know you are, and I love your sticker. You're coming off of probably some campaign events.
Yes.
Wanted to bring you into this conversation as we're talking about Black veterans, but tell us what you're seeing on the ground, not only in Maryland, but specifically in the 5th Congressional District, and how are you connecting with veterans as you're running for office?
Well, first of all, Richard, I want to thank you for your service. It's really important. I mean, 5th Congressional District is, and one of the reasons I ran in this district is because the number of veterans that are here. It's also, I should back up and say, Prince George's County has the highest number of veterans that retire in the DC area. They retire in Prince George's County. So what I tried to do, and you see something that the governor's doing this, and the attorney general did it when he was the lieutenant governor, and that is to really strengthen our Veteran Affairs Office. Before I was county executive, it really was just an afterthought. It was an office that was put into family services. But we elevated that to not just talk about how we access services for veterans who are here, but also businesses. You know, many of our vets retire in this area because they start companies that get federal contracts. That's the same for the 5th Congressional District. Many come here because you have access to quality health care. At the time that I left, service, and my dad left service, he did 30 years. I was in the Reserve JAG Corps. But you had Walter Reed with great access right there in this area. So what I see in the 5th Congressional District is veterans who are concerned about, one, wait times for services, the fact that with the cuts in staffing at the federal level that we've seen with DOGE and Trump, that phone calls aren't being answered, that spouses, my mom's is a spouse of a veteran who has my dad's benefits, and so she calls her son, she lives in Massachusetts, she calls her son in Maryland to ask about what she can do. Before I could turn to folks and say that, but those are things that they're worried about. But some of the biggest ones are also, as I said before, a lot of our contracts are our workers here, our small business, are veterans. They got out, got their loan, and started a business and built it really on federal contracts or people who are doing work with federal government. Or even state and local government. And so what you've seen over, especially during the Trump years, you've seen the cutback at the federal level, which then has an impact on those businesses, veteran businesses at the local level. Last thing I'll say real quick is, and we see this throughout in the 5th Congressional District, is that when the government shuts down and people aren't going to work, the folks who go back to the government get back pay. If you're a contractor, and I've been one, running a business, if you don't have a contract coming in, you have to lay people off. So it's not like you can start from where you left off. You're now behind. And in that time, you're trying to figure out, one, if you're ever going to get those contracts back. So you hold on to employees as long as you can, but you can't hold on to them forever. And so that puts a lot of them behind the eight ball. And so one of the things I want to work on in Congress and why I've said I want to be on the Veteran Affairs Committee is to help with these issues as somebody who knows it, as someone who served in the reserves. And a lot of our folks, I know you know this, Richard, come from the reserves, like our governor and like our attorney general, but also somebody who grew up in the military. I'm old enough where I didn't go to civilian schools, and that's what we called them, until I was in high school. I went to school on bases, whether it was Fort Bragg or Okinawa. So that is something that is near and dear for me. And so I think this is a perfect district that we can do a lot of stuff for our veterans. And probably the last thing I'll mention real quick is people don't realize you can actually use from Veteran Affairs the ability to impact infrastructure, dollars for transportation and infrastructure. And as we all know, that's where economic development happens. So if you think of a place like 210, which is all of the, most of the 5th Congressional District, building rapid transit in that area provides job opportunities for our veterans, but it also provides, health opportunities. All of those things can be directed from the Veteran Affairs so that we can have opportunities for those who have served and when they're coming out to have an opportunity. And it also goes to the quality of life for people who are at Navy bases, in St. Mary's and Joint Base Andrews, Joint Base Bolin, people who are stuck in traffic. It's a chance to use the Veteran Affairs and federal money combined with state and local dollars to help them out.
Thank you both. Now, the question that we had earlier on, and I know Richard was listening to the dynamic conversation between Congressman Clyburn and Congressman Horsford, and then we got President and CEO Mark Morial on for a little bit. Voting rights how would you relate to veterans that voting rights is just as much a critical issue for them, that we need Black veterans to be involved in this movement work and in this fight that we're doing with not only in the South, but we're tracking in Missouri and Washington State and others? And how do you relate? How should we, as an organization engaging Black men, relate to them that voting rights is equally important?
Yeah, to me, the Supreme Court's decision just changed the dynamics of our country. When people say, what's the most important issue? Probably before that decision, we would have said, affordability, maybe healthcare, certainly economic development, those are jobs. But now the most important issue is voting rights. Because with a sweep of a pen, the Supreme Court undid work that had been going on since, 1864, 65 at the end of the Civil War. Because if you don't understand how important that decision is, I understand it uniquely because I wouldn't have started my career if it wasn't for the Voting Rights Act. Here in Prince George's County, as hard as it is to believe, right next to the nation's capital, the place where I lived in Cheverly, Maryland, did not have an African-American representative, had not had one, even though the demographics had changed. And it was because you had this whole notion of 3 people being elected as delegates. So you had the white candidates that would team up in a district of 3, exclude the Black candidate, and then you could never win because they all single shot. They all voted for the 3 delegates and left that person running against a ticket. It was very hard to do. And so the Voting Rights Act allowed for a single member district in a majority African-American district to have a shot. So I was the first representative inside the Beltway, outside of traditionally Black areas in Prince George's County, the first time an African-American had been on a delegation from any place around Cheverly, College Park. Think of all those places. It was because of that. Now, if we hadn't had the Voting Rights Act, we would have had another 15 to 20 years of exclusion in areas because the votes are diluted. So that's one thing. The other thing is we can't advance any of the issues we care about once they start rolling back the membership of these districts, because it affects the Democrats who are more than likely in favor of this. It dilutes our vote. And so what we have to do is we're not going to have the numbers in Congress that we have. And for the Black Caucus, Hispanic Caucus, and Asian Caucus, you're going to start seeing numbers diluted, which means that representation, you could have a place like like we see now in Alabama and Mississippi, which have significant numbers of African Americans and people of color. Same thing with Georgia, my birthplace, and that's going to be diluted. But it also can happen in the North. You have places, battleground states like Ohio, Michigan, those places, Illinois. If you get a Republican legislature, a Republican governor, you could start Virginia. You could start seeing these things roll back. And so to me, this is the most critical issue. And this is where not only veterans, if we care about what's going to happen once we get out of the military, as we're in the military, this is the most important issue for everybody. Women's rights, gay rights, all of these things are on the ballot because of what the Supreme Court did, and more importantly, the abdication of what Congress did to not stop it. Somebody said, I see on the comments, they said taxation without representation.
There
That's
you go.
exactly it. Just think that this whole thing we're talking about with the Voting Rights Act is the very reason this country was founded. They said it was founded on that fact, and now we see it going back. So to me, it's the most important issue, and it's the one that I want to fight vigorously for when I get to Congress.
Yeah, Richard, over to you.
Yeah, I would say we need like a renewed double victory campaign. I mean, I would argue that we weren't actually successful at the first one. That's why we find ourselves in the predicament that we're in. And I do think that there are veterans across the country that want to be engaged, but don't know quite how to engage. And so it's just about giving them the tools and access to information about whether it be how to become poll workers or how to get involved in politics, how to run for office. I think veterans still, despite the efforts of the current administration, to try to undermine kind of where veterans fit in the kind of the psychology of most Americans, I still think that they are pedestaled in many, many ways and highly respected. And so they're respected messengers. They know how to organize. They certainly know how to reach people. And I do think they should be in the front lines of trying to protect our democracy in this moment. And I think messaging specifically to Black veterans in a way of like kind of renewal of this double victory campaign so that we can kind of pick up the mantle of where it was left off and see it through, I think is going to be deeply important as we go into the next election cycle as well.
As we're closing out from this segment, because my son is coming on next, and then Cameron, what's something you want to leave? Because we're live on YouTube. We've got a great group of folks who are listening in and engaging in the chat tonight. What's something you want to leave with the Black men who are here tonight as they take it back to their communities and they start a new week? Richard, I'll go to you first, and then we'll end with Rashawn.
Well, I mean, I'm a reparationist at heart. So at the end of the day, I feel like, organizing people to vote and then not delivering once you get their vote, I think is part of the reason that we end up being in the situation that we're in. And so I do think that study up on the case for reparative justice for Black veterans. I think there's a really, really strong case to be made. Certainly policies that have been propagated even by Representative Clyburn, who was on the call earlier, who put forward the GI Bill Restoration Act. Educate yourself about that bill. And I think that it's incumbent on us to ensure that the folks that when we do gain power, that we actually deliver for folks, and specifically for Black veterans and military families who've long waited for action to be taken with respect to not only the legacy of being locked out of their benefits, but present day disparities that are continuing to proliferate and unfortunately siphon billions of dollars out of the community.
Well, Richard, we're going to be working with you. I think we got a call scheduled for this coming week. We really want to see how we can engage more Black male veterans and work with you at the Black Veteran Project to continue this work. Rashawn, what's your final thing? And I know we usually save the candidates to the end, but you're here in this block. I'm going to let you do your thing.
Well, here's what I would say. I'm one of the things I'm very proud about is that I've got endorsed by With Honor, which is a veterans group that you take a pledge that once you go into Congress, you're going to work on behalf of veterans to get them the things that they need, Republican or Democrat. We need more of that. We need more of the fact that organizations like With Honor are not only endorsing candidates, but they're also putting their money behind it. No, it's not as much as some of these other, corporations that could care less about veterans that are doing, but they're there. The other place is, our Black veterans coming together and understanding how powerful their voice could be. especially teaming up with other minority groups that have served in the military. I know for me, you know, it was one of the things I said to my dad when I was working for Senator John Kerry. I was surprised, you know, doing some research on Vietnam and Agent Orange. I was surprised at the number of people of color, African Americans, that were going into these danger areas where Agent Orange was sprayed. And I asked him, you know, well, why is that? So much so that the Department of Interior said we need to start pulling some of them back. And the reason was the more dangerous the mission, the more money you got.
Class is yours. You
That's
see
right.
that?
The more money you got. And so that was why.
Okay. I'm coming up in a minute. This something so. Yeah.
That was Barry. Wait, we'll get you back on, Rashawn. Sorry. Let's see. I'm trying to remember, see which one that unmute you here. There you go. Nope, that's Barry again. Let's get you to do
Right here.
Yep, there you go.
Okay. I was saying, I'll close out and say that the number of people of color who served in the military and the power of coming together in those Black veteran organizations, the posts that they have, one that's in Clinton here and in the 5th Congressional District. I saw, you know, Buffalo Soldiers, African Americans are coming together, but bringing that not just into making sure that we talk to each other, but as a political power. And it shouldn't just be at the congressional level, the federal level. We need to start building it up from the ground level. And that is those local state offices, mayor's offices that actually have an impact on our veterans and what they're going to have. Because in order to be successful, you have to have the state, local, and federal. And so that's what I would say to us and why it's so important.
I think you forgot one last thing at the end. What are you doing in a couple of weeks? What's happening?
Yeah. I'm running for Congress in Maryland's 5th Congressional District. And one of the reasons is what we're talking about today, and that is to make sure we take care of our veterans, especially those of color that have been left behind by this administration. So Rashawn Baker, 5th Congressional District, excited about the race.
All right. Richard and Rashawn, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're going to have you back. Richard, I know we're talking this week. Rashawn, you got a couple more weeks. We're doing a few more things to highlight Black male candidates who are running in Maryland. So thank you both for taking some time on a Sunday to join us.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
All right. We're going to bring up my son, the general, joining the conversation right now. And I am going to try to. Okay, perfect. That worked out. My son, what's going on, bro? I know you're a little under the weather, so I appreciate you jumping in and continuing. We're going to unmute you because I think you're muted. Then we're going to bring Cameron up. Let me see if I can ask to unmute. You should be able to unmute now. Nope, still muted. All right. Can you unmute? There we go. Okay. There we go. So, you know, we've got and I'm going to come to some of the questions that we've got in the Q&A and some of the questions that we've got in the comments. I know Quentin and I are very eager to answer somebody's question from earlier. But my son, give us a perspective of brothers that you talk to. What we've always talked about, and I think me, you, Deontay, Mike, and a few other brothers were in New York last year on a panel. You know, we want to make sure we are reaching everybody. And my message may come across to a few. Quentin may grab a few more. I know Mike and Mondale and John, they may grab a few more. But there are other brothers who we might not reach, who might not listen and want to join into a Zoom. So as you're doing this work, you heard maybe from Congressman Clyburn and Congressman Horsford earlier. You just listened to Richard and Rashawn talking about Black veterans. How should we be engaging this conversation with brothers who may not necessarily be joining this Zoom, but we want them to?
Thanks. First of all, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure just listening to all of you and just getting your perspectives and getting insight and understanding the time that we're in and how important it is. You know, and even though I'm under the weather, these allergies are killing me, but I thought it was imperative that I come to this call. You know, as I listen to a lot of the elected officials, those running for Congress, those running for certain seats, you know, the thing that I see stands out is they understand that they have to tell people how they're going to help them, right? The messaging is very important because the average everyday Black person needs to know why they want to vote for you and how it's going to directly impact them. Many have been told that Black places in high Black faces in high places don't really help them. These are narratives, you know, and they've been told that the states and the cities governed by Black people are actually doing the work. These are complete narratives that are taking over the social media that I have to combat every day. So I think, especially when we talk about how, just look at the landscape of New York and how, you know, they voted for Mayor Mamdani because the average individual that I speak to is just, they're tired of politics as usual. They're tired of politicians that can be brought. They're tired of politicians that want to play it safe. You know, we've literally watched a president go into office and do everything to dismantle everything. He didn't play politically safe. He didn't have political decorum. He said what he was going to do for his fan base, and he's done everything possible to make those things come true. Now, even though those things are negative against us, people see that it can happen. You know, so this is what we want. We want, especially inside the people that I'm talking, they want elected officials that are not going to go on the campaign and shake their hands and say, yes, we want to do this, and then get into office and say, well, I can't do this, and they won't let me do this. They want elected officials that are going to do everything possible. When we talk about Mayor Mamdani, everything that he said that he was going to do in that campaign train, he is actually trying to implement. You know, and I think that's the time we're in. Is no longer political correctness. They don't want the handshakes. They don't want the smile. They don't care if you're Black. That's really a reality, because they don't. A lot of our Black politicians have sold us out, or they believe they've sold them out, or they haven't done enough to fight for them in their eyes. So how do you? The messaging that you have to do is show them how this is not accurate, that all the states and cities ran by Black officials are doing poorly. It's not accurate. We do need Black representation. We do need to make sure that people in our communities, who come from our communities that look like us, are actually in position because they understand the realities that go on in our communities. Those are things that we have to be very intentional about our messaging. When I'm talking to these individuals, I have to give them direct instances where those things are false, because the enemy is giving them false information that it seems like it's pinpoints. You know, if you go onto social media and you see some of the Black conservatives and the Black people, MAGA people who are coming out, they're coming out with false narratives, but they are intentional and they're saying them like they're facts. And if nobody's there to combat those falsehoods, right? If nobody's here to give them the actual data, give them the actual reality, and show them something different, then they're going to believe it. So I just think we have to really get intentional about our messaging and be intentional about making sure that we're putting elected officials in position that are actually going to do what they say on those campaign trails.
My son, the chat is going live right now. You're getting a lot of love and a lot of brothers who are letting you know that the words that you are saying are connecting with them and preaching to them in a way that they want to. But I also know I got to check my own, I got to check myself sometimes to realize, while I am frat, I know there's some frat brothers on here, we know that's not the norm necessarily in a lot of our communities. How do we check our own egos to bring the message of voter registration, voter engagement, civic engagement into those streets and into those neighborhoods that we don't always touch, but we need to touch? What advice do you give to us, or maybe some of the Divine Nine that's listening right now, about tactics and ways that they should do things differently? That one's for you, Mai.
Well, what I would say is, I'm sorry, I thought I heard you say another name. What I would say is, really, I think that you have to be honest. You have to meet the people where they are. You have to come to our communities. You can't just, you know, one of the major things that I said about the last campaign, they disregarded our community. They waited to the last moment to engage us. They didn't even want to fund the people on the ground. I had to go to 1,000 meetings to tell them that we need to be funding people on the ground that are really inside of these communities, explaining to them that you're missing a point. And they thought that just saying how bad that Trump was and what he was going to do and all those things were going to impact the average individual that you're telling, that I'm speaking to, that you're telling to vote. They actually don't even realize about inflation. They just know that prices is high. They don't understand how all these things impact them. They just think in their mind that no matter who's in office, the same, we're going to get the same hell. And we have to explain to them how exactly it's going to change. They have to see people that they actually respect, they actually trust. We have to build up trust. We have to go to the communities and find out what is impacting you. What do you want to see change? At this moment, ever since I was on my Diamonds transition team, I've been doing town halls with the community saying, what is going on in this community? What is impacting you? What would you like to see change? What directly, legislation can we put in? Who would you like to see in office? Who people that you feel like you want to represent your community? Like those things help. They want to feel involved in the process. They don't want to feel like it's just business as usual. They don't want to be taken for granted. Especially Black men in our communities, they've been targeted the most by not even our side, by the other side, because they understand that a lot of these things, a lot of Black men have a lot of different conservative views, but they don't want to be racially profiled. They don't want to lose their jobs. They don't want to lose their money. So how do you impact them is by speaking to them exactly. This is how we're going to save you money. This is how your house is going to be different. This is how we're going to make sure that it is less likely for you to go to jail than everyone else. This is how we're going to make sure that your kids are educated properly. Direct things that are actually going to impact them, because everything else is like we're speaking pie in the sky. And I think the average person that I'm speaking to is just tired of it. So I think when we really look at the landscape of what's going on, we have to be intentional. Our people are the people who have been left out. We're being expected to vote. This is what I hear all the time, that we're being taken for granted, that nobody cares because they know they're going to always get 85% of our vote, so they don't have to give us anything. They don't have to directly promise and come through on promises for anything. So we have to dispel those myths, and we got to have candidates that are actually going to do what they say, and those things that they say have to directly impact us in a positive way.
And so, obviously, I don't speak for my fraternity, but let's use me as an example. I show up I saw that, Quentin. I show up in my, look, my shoulder don't move like yours. I can't do it. Anyway, moving on. I show up in, let's say, New Jersey, or I go to Brooklyn, where, my sister and my nephews and my brother-in-law live. And I want to go on the block and maybe engage wearing some of my paraphernalia and do some civic engagement and some voter registration. How do you advise me as what I should do to really connect with brothers on the street and in the community? Do I take you hand in hand? Are there other micro or nano influencers that we should partner with as we're doing this work? What are some strategies that brothers who are listening right now, who I know are developing programs either at the fraternity or national organizations, and even us are hearing development at Women Black Men, what are some of the tactics that we should take back to do things differently so that we have a different outcome in November?
Well, the first thing you do is not just speak to those individuals when it's time to vote, right? The reason, because the average individual that's really doing the work on the ground is not going to just want to talk to you when you come and you want to parade them around the block and go to the communities and shake hands. Engage those individuals from now. Before then, find out who are the individuals in the communities. How do we communicate with them? Find out what's going on in those communities, because you're going to need these communities. Build relationships with those individuals, because the word and their honor is paramount in their community. So they're not going to allow you to just come and utilize them and use their capital in the community and then make them be discredited. No, you have to engage, you have to build relationships with the community. And then when you start building relationships with the communities, then you're going to get those community leaders and those voices that they respect. And then those individuals will make sure that you engage in those communities. Those individuals make sure that you know where to go. They'll make sure that you understand what the needs of said community is. And then at that point, you figure out what can you do for those communities, and you build a whole agenda for those communities, and you explain to them how you're going to do something different, and you actually mean it. You don't just say it because a lot of these individuals you actually mean that you're going to go back to those communities if you get elected, and you're going to do everything you can to implement things that are going to change in those communities.
And then I brought Cameron up because, and Cameron, I know you might want to share your slides, but I want to talk about this disinformation. And my son, you spoke about it just a moment ago. What are we hearing on the ground, Cam, and my son, what are you hearing, and Quentin, that we can tell brothers who are on the Zoom tonight? So Roger Grimes says, where have we been hiding, brother, my son? You're getting a lot of love in the chat right now. People want to connect with you. I love it. But Cam, how do we fight back against this disinformation? How do we activate around that so that when we're going in communities early, as my son suggested, we're doing the work on the ground and we're beating back against this wave that is taking on this disinformation?
I think there's two core things that we should be thinking about. One, I think everybody from elected officials to my side, this is still one-to-one relational organizing. People trust people they know. They trust local leaders, not necessarily local elected leaders, but local, uh, whether it's influencers, business people, people from their church, people from their block. There's somebody that is their cultural news that they trust. And then the other thing is that I think we're and you see this in trends, and I'll show this really quick. You see this in a lot of trends is that we are preaching, 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 and there's so much fatigue, whether it's digitally and in person. I think that's probably one of Trump and their entire focus is like if we hit you with a news story every day, whether it's Iran, whether it's gas prices, whether it's police retire, any of these different things every day, we can't keep up. And people just are fatigued. People are, at the end of the day, they want to provide for their families, for themselves, hopefully be able to work, have a little fun, and also be entertained. And you see people going more and more into entertainment-based silos. So I think the one thing, because I don't know if everybody here is elected, or organizational leader, or just concerned black men, but you have some voice online, and that online voice needs to be paired with real life engagement. But again, this is where to fight back against some of that, misinformation, disinformation, and being able to share credible news sources. Please, before you push, just this looks like a cool fact. Google it. As simple as that may sound, it may not be as quick and easy whether you're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Just Google it, look it up. At least try to find some verifiable, or unless it's coming from somebody you truly trust or a news source you truly trust. But something that we're not doing is we're not using culture and memes as much. Things that are looking to entertain people. Most people are, if they may see something talking about voting rights or something that they need to organize or register to vote. They may register in their head, they may not, but they're going to scroll into something that is funny, something that is entertaining, something that is eye-catching and attractive, something that makes them want to. Like I said, if I'm on social, I'm there to be social and entertained, usually first. So something that you could do. If you're going to be posting these facts and these factoids and infographics and videos and so forth, try using trending audio. We need to have some of these algorithms and how the internet actually work for us. So, like there's a huge shebang trend with Drake's new album. Literally put that audio or search trending hashtags and audio just to give your organic stuff a little extra boost. Something that if you're looking for like, hey, how do I structure better captions? Or if I want to share information on my social media feed, how do I come up with most people just type something quickly, but how do I actually catch something that will help it be shared? I go on RapidTags.io, say, hey, it's a free site to be able to generate viral hashtags. But then there comes the peer-to-peer or relational outreach. I think we need to ask every man here to hit at least 3 men a day, or 3 other black men, or 3 people a day in their DMs, in their socials, in their text, with some information asking are they registered to vote. I think we often say we're going to do it, but most of us are actually not on the ground doing something literally every single day, because we're not going to win this in a money battle. Like we're not in terms of just a bunch of advertising. People need to hear directly from folks. And I think there's so many different resources, Collective PAC, Black Men Vote, so many different resources of different information you could share. But I would challenge folks, if you looked on your various feeds, is this something you're actually doing every day? Because if we just wait till election day, we're kind of too late. People need to see that we are constantly on this every single day. So those are just some of the things that I'm seeing in terms of fighting back. Do something as simple as Googling and research, but make sure you're putting this data, put in this information, put in the videos on your actual feeds across your socials, and doing it consistently, because somebody who knows you personally, or they may know what you're working on, they'll trust your voice more than they'll trust it coming from just anywhere else. And then if you're funny, if you got trends, if you see memes and so forth, sneaking some of that medicine in the candy, because people are still on these social platforms to be entertained, and we have to find ways to be able to break through in those ways.
Really quick, we had a question from John Johnson that asked how to fight disinformation that is a lot of the AI generated versus credible news sources. I posed that to you and my son. And let's start there and then want to go to a couple extra questions we got.
My thing in terms of, I think that's people are using the AI generated information, whether it's one thing we do need to be aware of. There are so many different AI avatars. In full disclosure, is something that our company creates and sells and utilizes for campaigns and organizations, and in the consumer space as well. You may be following what looks like a really attractive woman, or really or a brother, white guy, woman, black guy, whatever, and they may be talking about relationships, talking about they're doing a lot of they're studying the psychographics of a lot of folks and creating avatars for people to talk about that, and then dropping in soft political messaging over time because you're just attracted to the look there. I would say before you share an actual person talking, Google what they're actually sharing. Now, it's one thing if you're getting it from an actual news source or person you know is a verified account, that's one thing. But make sure you're doing that. It's just that extra due diligence. At the end of the day, it's that extra due diligence that we have to put on ourselves. Most people just want to hit share and keep moving. You got to before you hit share, you got to review. So that was what I would say, because that is an active thing that is happening. More and more accounts of fake people who are meant to entice you, usually visually entice you, usually scantily dressed, or they put them in certain scenarios because it makes it entertaining. And they may not be talking all politics, but they're eventually dropping soft political messaging throughout. That is a growing trend online. We have to be aware of.
My son, what about you?
I absolutely agree with what he's saying, but we also have to create our own AI versions. We have to actually amplify our own voices who are telling the facts, right? There are a lot of good Black content creators who utilize the AI and they combat everything they say. That's a very good strategy when they're telling a lie, because a lot of them, they'll never get on the same platform with you because they know you'll debunk everything that they say. But they speak to the echo chamber of their pages, and they just spread this misinformation. So there's nothing to challenge it. And I think what we have to do is every time you see that negativity, you find someone who can challenge it, amplify someone who's challenging, the false narratives. Continue to utilize the same strategies that they have. And I've been telling them forever, we have to market what we want the same way that they market what they want. I think a lot of times when you know that you're on the side of good and you're telling the truth, you don't think that you have to explain the truth. But that's not true, because no one is going to spread a message faster than someone who's lying, because they're going to continue to say it over because they want to convince you. And if nobody has another narrative, then they actually believe that narrative. So we have to be very intentional. We have to work very hard. We have to amplify the voices of those who are telling the exact information that is correct. We got to amplify the voices who are challenging the misinformation, and we got to be very intentional.
Brothers, I love it. Again, the chat is loving you, my son, which is why I know we are fighting to make sure we can get you on here as often. We're going to be on every week. If you don't, in the slides that you just saw from Cameron, we just put the link in the chat. Every Tuesday morning at 11 a.m., we're working on making sure it comes out at 11 a.m. You'll get your weekly resource email. The one that just came out this week, it's live. You can click on the link right there in the chat for everyone to get a hold of it. My son, anything you want to leave us with before we close out tonight? I know you've given us more time than you would expect. I know you're under the weather, so thank you.
No, thank you for having me. As I speak about the things that we have to do locally and we have to do to be direct, as we talk to each individual in our communities who doesn't feel like this system is working for them, so they feel like they've checked out. We've also decided, a bunch of us, Until Freedom, Urban League, Faith for Black Lives, Woke Vote, we decided that we understand how critical what's going on in the South is happening. So we're going to be planning our own rally in Harlem, June 20th. It's the last weekend of early voting for the New York City primary, and we're going to have different individuals, community leaders, some elected officials, everyone just imploring how much important it is that we get out and vote, that we make sure that our people are registered to vote, and we explain it to them actually what they're voting for.
Perfect. I know Cam had to jump. My side, feel better, man.
Yes.
I'll text you.
I appreciate you, King.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Guys, man, appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Right. Q, you jumping off?
No.
Oh, okay.
Saying thank you to them.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm trying to try to do all this. We are gonna have, before we bring up our candidates and close out the night, we've got Thomas Pierre. I am gonna spotlight you. I'm gonna remove me and Q and just give you a sec here. As we did last week, Thomas Pierre is working with a foundation to highlight. I'm gonna let him do his spiel. But Thomas Pierre, Brother Pierre, you're on. Can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we got you. The floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. And thank you for having me, Brother Khalil. My name is Thomas Pierre, and I am a National Board Certified Music Teacher. I'm the president of the Middle Atlantic chapter of the American Orff Schulwerk. And I am so excited to share this event with this platform. This event is called Golden Hour. It's a karaoke dance party, and it will be held in Washington, D.C. And if you're not in Washington, D.C., you can still support. We're doing this. It's not just about entertainment, but the cause is very close to my heart. It's scholarship. Through the Middle Atlantic chapter and Mu Lambda, we're partnering with Mu Lambda. This is the second time. We're raising funds for teachers to take professional development so that they can impact the students that they teach. So it's teach music. I'm a music teacher, and people don't really understand the significance of the arts and how it plays an important role in shaping students' cultural, social, emotional, life, and helps them become leaders and disciplined, like sports. And Mu Lambda Foundation is raising money for students to attend college. So it's scholarship. And, this is very personal to me because I'm the first African-American president of this music professional organization. We've been in existence for over 50 years, and I am the first African-American board member and the first African-American president. I've been on the board since 2015. And from an all-white board, with just me being the president, we now have 8 members on the board who are African-American. So I'm very proud about that. So if you can't attend, I'm going to put this up so that you can see it. You can scan the link. You can scan the QR code. I also put the link inside the chat so Brother Khalil could share it with you.
Yep. Everybody should have it now.
And let me pull this up really quick. Oh, here it goes. And so can everyone see this?
No, we've got your main screen, your email.
Okay, so let me do this one more time. Okay.
But brothers, while we're getting the graphic on the screen, which we'll have up in just a second, you can click in the chat, go to that Zeffy link, purchase a couple of tickets for this amazing event. We had someone say, "Art saved my life," and to many others in my community. This is extremely important. Someone added to the chat. Appreciate you, good brothers. Brother Pierre, are you able to share?
Yeah, do you see it now?
Yes, we got it now.
Please, brothers, please, I need your help. I'm trying to raise $6,000 because we're splitting the funds. Like I said, it's to support scholarship. I went to Howard University on a scholarship, actually not a full scholarship because I switched my major and then they took it away from me. But because I sung in the choir, I got money every semester until I graduated. We need you. We need your help. Every time we turn around, people are asking for money. So, people are pretty apathetic. I'm begging you, brothers, and whoever's on the line, sisters, whoever's on the line, your family, if you cannot attend, if you can buy a few tickets, I would greatly appreciate it. And I so thank you, Brother Khalil, for this wonderful platform that you have, that you are pouring into the lives of people all over the world. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you, Brother Pierre. If you could just stop sharing for us really quick. I am perfect. We are going to now do, all right, here we go. Yes. We are going to, sorry, hold on. Okay. We are going to bring up some of our candidates who are running, and then we've got a dynamic organizer in South Carolina, Nicholas Oughton, who's going to tell us about what just happened on the ground. But as we always do, coming to the end of our evening, thank you for all of you who've held on so long. We've got a U.S. Senate candidate who is running in South Dakota. Now, I know a lot of you brothers are like, wait a minute, hold on. We got a brother in South Dakota running for U.S. Senate? Yes. So a thing that we are doing here at Win with Black Men is we are making sure we are highlighting Black men who are running for office around the country. So not only in our Tuesday resource email, you'll see that towards the bottom. I believe, Julian, you were in this week, but even in the reminders that we do to get you on the calls on Sunday, it's going to come out on Friday and then coming out on Sunday after church. We are going to be reminding you of the Black men who are running for office. You should have seen many of them in an email that you either received Friday or on today on Sunday. But Julian, the floor is yours. Why are you running for U.S. Senate and why in South Dakota?
Man, why not? Black folks are doing great things everywhere all the time. So my background is in law enforcement. I started my career off as a state trooper here in South Dakota, spent 13 and a half years in uniform, then became the state nominee for U.S. Marshal, did some work in the nonprofit world, and was recognized by former President Barack Obama as one of the 100 most influential leaders across this country in 2024. I knew that my next level of service had to be big to impact the state, but also to impact Black Americans all across our country. And so we took on the task of seeking the Democratic nomination for the United States Senate here in South Dakota. I am proud to say I am now officially the Democratic nominee in South Dakota, and we are proud to face Mike Rounds in November. One of the things that I believe makes this race really, really winnable for us is that we have, because of the work that we've done and also because of the coalition building that we've been able to do across this country, thanks to folks like Win with Black Men, and I'm proud also to be endorsed by the Collective PAC and Quentin. One of the things that we've been able to do with boots on the ground is we have taken Mike Rounds' approval rate from 57% all the way down to 32%. And so while we might not be part of this electoral map that the DNC and Democrats across the country is focusing on, we're definitely doing the work, boots on the ground, making sure that the voices of the people are heard and that we're representing Black folks the right way.
And so you got brothers on. We put the link to his campaign in the chat. It's there for everybody. I'm glad you said it about the DNC. A lot of the work that we're trying to do here and a part of the resource emails and highlighting candidates and races like yourselves, we're behind Scott Colomb and we're behind you, Scott, in Mississippi, and you in South Dakota. We're saying that if we go by the same old map that others who don't look like me and you are determining the races that are important, we're leaving out races like yourselves who could literally change the map for us. And if we got out of this sort of antiquated model and looked at engaging all of our states and playing as if we want to win, then we could really change what the U.S. Senate looks like and what the U.S. House looks like. So you've got brothers who are paying attention right now. Talk to us about maybe how fundraising is going, where your polling looks like, anything else you want to share about what's happening in the campaign trail as you're leading up to November.
Yeah, man. Thank you for that. I'll start off with the polling numbers. We are actually neck and neck with Mike Rounds, and also there's an independent candidate in the race. And this is one of the other reasons why it's so important for Black folks to get behind Black candidates such as myself. And I'll even throw in Mr. Booker down in Kentucky as well. We have to be able to really rally the troops around all of us. The independent candidate is a former Democrat who ran. He has the name recognition. It's very similar to what we're fighting against with the Republican and Mike Rounds. Name recognition is there for them. Money is there for them. Connections across the country are there for them. And still, we are coming into this race as a brand new candidate, and we are still neck and neck with them. I am polling right now at 31. The independent is polling at 32, and Mike Rounds is polling at 33. So and that's a plus 1 or 2 percentage differential for both of us. So we really have a unique opportunity to flip a seat that they don't even think Black folks exist in South Dakota. And so that's always the number one question I get when I say I'm from South Dakota. Well, how many Black folks are there? And I say just enough to make a difference, because that's what we're doing here today with this campaign. So as far as the fundraising numbers go, we're actually doing well. We've raised 3 times as much in-state money as the independent candidate, and we've raised 12 times the amount of in-state money as the incumbent Republican in Mike Rounds. Now, we have not raised much out-of-state funds, which is where coalitions like this come in, because it will take those out-of-state monies to be able to compete at a national level. And so I just ask for all of the support, whether you can chip in 5, 10, 15 bucks, even if it's $2 or $3. Listen, we'll take it all and try to make it a monthly contribution, because those monthly contributions definitely help our campaigns.
Well, Julian and Quentin, anything you want to add before I close this out?
No, again, just thank you for running, brother. We appreciate the sacrifice that you're making for us, and we got your back. That's all I want to add.
Yeah, 100%. So, Julian, we got you here in DC. Not sure when you're coming out east, but we would love to partner with Collective and others to do some type of fundraising for you. And so you got us 100% behind you. We're working through we're not as fancy as Collective PAC, but you got our support. I know. Come on, man. You were looking down like you take a shot. You try to get me on my alpha stuff. I saw that. But you got us. Anything you want to leave brothers with right now is your final closing thought.
Yeah, man, just, again, coalition building for me is really, really important. And I think that's what it's going to take, not just to win this race, but when we get into the Senate seat, coalition building that's what it's going to take to really pass legislation that's impactful for folks across this country. And one of the things that I'm really, really focused on is universal health care, making life more affordable for all folks here in South Dakota. But I'm also making sure that we're tackling voting rights and passing the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. Those are 2 of my main priorities. I want to just maybe take personal privilege real quick to shout out Cam. Listen, Cam has been really instrumental in connecting not just this campaign, but I know campaigns across the country with folks who really can push the needle. I'm not sure if he's still on, but I just want to say I appreciate you, Cam. I appreciate the work that you're doing for Black candidates across the country, and keep going, man.
Well, perfect. Well, for those that don't know, we've got a Black man running for U.S. Senate in South Carolina. I think it is an amazing opportunity. We're not only talking about registering voters and turning them out in the states that we also often think about, but we're talking about going to places that we don't often think about. And if we can move the needle and really do some critical engagement, November could be a great day. We can go into Thanksgiving seeing that maybe something's changed in this country for the better. Julian, you have our support. We got your back, man. Waiting for you to come out here, and anything we can do, you're always going to be featured in the newsletter. Thank you for jumping on tonight.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all for having me.
All right. We've got another candidate in the great state of South Carolina who's running for governor. There he is. I saw that camera. There we go. He knew coming over to him. All right. We've got South Carolina State Representative Jermaine Johnson, who's running for governor of the state of South Carolina. Man, I'd heard that you maybe have just got off on a call with Congressman Clyburn. He was with us earlier in the evening. What does it feel like on the ground? And then talk to us about your race.
Man, well, first off, brothers, I really appreciate y'all giving me an opportunity to be on here this evening. As you can hear, I'm losing my voice from all the speaking engagements I've been doing all over the state and everything. And I'm sure Quentin can tell you the energy that was in that room that he was here, that he saw at the convention, at the Palmetto dinner that was on Friday. People in South Carolina, they are fired up for me. They are ready for a new South Carolina. I've been using the hashtag NewSC because this is the first time in over 30 years that we will have a Black nominee for governor of South Carolina, right? The very first one, his name was Theo Mitchell. That was back in 1990. We have not seen a Black man nominee for governor since 1990. I'll be the second one in the history of South Carolina. People are fired up. They're ready. I'm running against 2 multi-millionaire self-funded candidates right now. They have lots and lots of money, and yet I'm still up double digits in all the polls. I'm beating them on everything right now, and it looks like we have a phenomenal pathway to being the nominee here in about a week or so. But I need my brothers to stand with me. Like I need my brothers to support what we have going on, because this is a grassroots movement. As y'all know, I'm hearing all the you can't win because you're black. That has been the narrative. You're black. You can't win because you're black. You're black. You're black. That's been the elephant in the room by all the folks who are part of the establishment. I was the establishment trying to pressure me to get out. About a month and a half ago, and I backed. I went against them, and I still was able to do what I had to do. And now, like I said, I'm the favorite to win this primary here. This is a pivotal moment because we have black candidates up and down the ballot in South Carolina. And with me at the top of the ticket, we have over 300,000 black people who have not voted in South Carolina since President Barack Obama. 300,000. So we have the numbers to win here in South Carolina. The last election cycle in 2024, when Joe Cunningham ran, he got 700,000 votes in South Carolina. The winning person, which was Henry McMaster, got 988,000. If those 300,000 black people came out to vote, Joe Cunningham would be our governor right now, a Democrat. But guess what? I know where them 300,000 black people are at. I'm targeting those 300,000 black people, and they will be coming out to vote for the next black man to be the governor of South Carolina. We've got the numbers. We can do it. What we learned also in 2020 when Jamie Harrison ran was he got 1.1 million votes. That means in South Carolina, we know that there are at least 1.1 million people who are willing to vote for a Democrat and a black man statewide. Y'all, we got the numbers, but I need y'all's help to help spread the message, chip in $5, $10, $20, whatever y'all can afford to this campaign, because we got to be able to compete with the messaging with these multi-millionaire, one's a billionaire, self-funded individuals who are getting these things out, across the board. They're going to try to drown me out with all their money. But so far, things have not been working. I got a standing ovation at the convention on Saturday before I even got a chance to speak. And people are just ready. And I just need y'all's help, man.
Well, look, man, I have been following the race. You got Stephen Miller Pitts wrote in the chat, first black governor of South Carolina, book it. And he put that you're a Sigma with a crying face emoji. I don't know what to take with that, but we'll let you have it.
B5, baby. I didn't know there was any other fraternities. I thought it was all 5 minutes.
Jermaine, we had a good time in South Carolina. Don't ruin it. Don't ruin it.
Brother Roy has hit me like, no, we gotta reconsider that endorsement.
No, but y'all, for real though, as a witness, I haven't seen people fired up about a candidate like that in a very long time in South Carolina. Young, old, black, white, rural, urban. I mean, Jermaine is doing great work. And so let's stand behind him, y'all. The links in the chat, please give what you can. 5, 10, 1,000, 10,000, whatever you can. It makes a big difference.
Stephen, I'm not going to repeat what you just put into the chat, but we're standing with you. Same question I asked for Julian. Hey, there we go. What's up, man? You name some of the hurdles that people are saying that you may have. To brothers that may have family in South Carolina, want to get engaged, but are concerned about those hurdles. They're not a concern for me. What do you say to them? What does the polling look like? How's the fundraising going? Give them some feedback that empowers them to take back to their communities.
Yeah. Well, the polling, like I said, all the polls have me winning. I mean, even if you follow Kalshi, the little betting website, they got me at like 90% winning, right? So like everything has got me up. Everything has got me winning. And like I said, just judging by the people here in South Carolina at all the events, I'm the one that gets all the cheers, the standing ovations, all that type of stuff. My crowds are always the ones that are packed out. I've got no shortage of media appearances and things like that. Y'all probably saw me in the Breakfast Club and on MS Now with Reverend Sharpton as well. So I am the front runner. Like I said, we've got the numbers, early voting. People are counting votes, and I'm up big in early voting right now. I'm in the State House. I'm the one who fought to help out with the redistricting effort that they were just trying to get rid of Congressman Clyburn. So like I said, everything is looking good right now. If the momentum just stays right what it is right now, bro, we good. You know what I'm saying? We'll be good.
When's election day?
Yeah, election is next Tuesday. So not this Tuesday coming up, but next Tuesday.
Okay, so you got a week. We got a week.
Yeah, I got 1 week.
Okay. Well, we are here with you, man. We love what you're doing on the ground, engaging our brothers in our communities. Any final thoughts before you go? And if you don't, save that voice. But we're 100% behind you.
Listen, I appreciate y'all boys for allowing me the opportunity to come on here, man. And if anything else that we can stand together, I'm inviting all the brothers who's on this call to be at my inauguration when we make history in November.
There you go. Well, y'all heard it here. South Carolina State Representative Dr. Jermaine Jones Sr. is running to be the next governor of South Carolina. Appreciate you, brother, jumping on. Save your voice. Get some rest. We appreciate you. And then we are going to go to a gentleman who's running to be Lieutenant Governor of California. Wait a minute. Oh, did I knock myself out? My bad. Let me see here. There we go. All right. We've got, there we go. Okay. Michael Tubbs is running to be the next Lieutenant Governor of California. Brothers, what we're trying to do is show you that there are dynamic brothers around the country who are running for office federally, statewide. I'm not sure we have the capacity this year to go as far as the state house and the state senate or down to the county and municipal level. We're going to try to bring some dynamic brothers who are running. But our goal is to bring you not just federal candidates, to show you there are dynamic candidates running, and Michael Tubbs is one of them. He is a great candidate right now who is running to be the next Lieutenant Governor of California. Michael, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm good, man. 72 hours or whatever Tuesday is election day. So all full speed ahead. But my son graduated kindergarten today, so I got to do that. So that was fun.
Congratulations. Well, look, we're not going to keep you too long. You know, you only have 72 hours left until the election. Tell brothers on here, what can they look forward to work with you? What do you need? How can we get you over that finish line? Is there anything else that we can do to support you?
Yeah, I tell folks all the time that for folks like me, like many on this call, the only way we win is with community. Like, I don't have a billionaire father. My father's incarcerated. I don't come from a political family. I'm first generation college student. And California's a big state. So what I really need is folks to help spread the word. We know that only 15% of ballots have been turned in California. And we know for us to win, we need turnout. We need our people to show up and vote. We need folks who believe in a government that works for everyone. Folks that believe that civil rights and economic rights go hand in hand. Folks that understand the need to make sure that folks are able to participate, have some ownership in the fourth largest economy that is California. I need you. So if you get on your Twitter, your Instagram, your Threads, and talk about Michael Tubbs for Lieutenant Governor of California, even if you're not in California, that's very helpful. If you have folks in California, reminding them to vote, like, hey, at least Tubbs for Lieutenant Governor. And if you can donate, you go to michaeltubbsforca.com, $5, $10, $20, $50, $500. All money between now and Tuesday goes to direct voter contact, voter outreach. And then we have to do it again in November, because in California, it's the top two primaries. So the top two people make it to November. So this is the pre-party. So I need y'all for Tuesday, and then starting June 3rd to November 6th, I'm going to be bugging you guys every single day to make sure we win and make history in California.
I love it. Same question you've been asking everybody else. What's the polling look like? How's the fundraising going? I know you're in this final stretch, but we just asked the same question of everybody.
Yeah, fundraising is looking pretty well. We raised over $2.5 million, and which is it was tough to do. And some folks have raised more, some folks have raised less, but we're competitive. All the polling says that once people hear about what I did as mayor of Stockton, the success we've had, that we win. So we should be one of those top two slots, but it's going to be a tight race. I predict that between number 1 and number 4 will probably be a 5-point spread, meaning that, again, every vote actually counts. And then after that, after November, it's one-on-one. Is be even better. But yeah, we're in a really good position, but nothing is set in stone. And really what happens in the next 72 hours in terms of folks voting is going to determine what Tuesday night looks like.
Gotcha. Well, we're 100% behind you. Anything you want to leave brothers with tonight before you jump off?
Yeah, I first of all, thank you guys for doing this, right? Because I think what gets lost in the conversation about the brilliance and beauty and intelligence of Black women is that Black men also vote very smart as a group as well. We are right behind. We vote the right way, and we have just so much power. So as we continue to organize and get more of us who aren't voters to vote more regularly, we'll continue to have our influence. Because if you look at how and everything we touch, whether it's culture, anything we do, people follow. We're leaders, and I think we have to take that same energy in politics and really make that sort of central to the influence we wield in this country and in this world, as we do with music and sports and other things.
And now you had a quick question. You had two, so you can choose. How does the California governor's race complicate or not complicate things for you? And then Brother Roy Tatum asked, he's curious about how you're going to try to do guaranteed basic income in California statewide.
I'll take the second question first. So the second question, there's a couple things we can do. Number one, I've already been working with state senator on a bill to do a basic income program for every foster youth in California. It would cost about $20 million a year, but doing so would make it so that every foster youth, when they turn 18, are given a guaranteed income until they turn 25. And that's important because we know that 50% of folks who are homeless in California were once foster youth. We know that the young women who are being trafficked on Figueroa Street in Los Angeles, vast majority are foster youth. We know that a big part of it is that they turn 18 and they're just on their own because with the state, we say we're going to take care of them, but when they turn 18, we just lead them to the world. So that's one thing that's in motion now. Number two, I do believe that California has to lead the way and allow people to own their data. I think in owning our data, that provides a way for us to have like what folks are calling universal basic capital. So allowing people to have some ownership stake. So that's how I'm thinking about kind of a basic income statewide in California, is using like AI and data and making sure that we have ownership stakes of those. And then to the previous question, the governor's race is so crazy. It's been hard to get people attention, right? That's what the hard part. And people are so conflicted. And that's why them ballots aren't in yet, because people are like, do I vote for Javier? Do I vote for Tom? And it's a thing. So it's complicated race in that way because the governor's race is crazy, but the lieutenant governor's race is actually pretty competitive. There's 4 of us who are pretty formidable, who have elected experience, who have like I got SCIU, one of the candidates got the Labor Federation, and then different candidate got the Teachers Association. So like the big 3 labor groups are split. So it's an interesting race. But no, so yeah, it's complicating the race in that way, in terms of folks just trying to hedge their bets and figure out who they want to vote for governor and to get people's attention. But yeah, again, we've been doing the work. We've been working incredibly hard. We've been up and down the state. I'll be in Oakland and San Francisco all day tomorrow. So we feel good, but it's just nothing for granted. So anything you all could do to help in the next 72 hours, I really do appreciate it. I would not be on here if it didn't matter. Trust me, I'd be kicking it with my kindergarten graduate, first grader.
We're going to get you back soon because I know how those days are. I do miss them. We just put your link back in the chat for everybody. Check them out in the next 72 hours. If you can do anything to help, please do. You've got a dynamic, there's a chat is loving you. A lot of brothers got your back. We want to see how these next 72 hours go. We're going to let you go. Enjoy, but we're standing right there with you over these next 3 days.
Appreciate it. Always good to see you guys.
All righty, brother.
All right, thank you.
Gentlemen, I'm on cue if you, there you are. I'm going to bring you back up, and then we're going to bring up Nick Outen. We had a brother ask us in the chat. We're going to send him an email talking to us about what happened in 2024. One, let me just answer the question. This was Win with Black Men was a concept that came to me in 2022 after Joteka Edie had a group of Black men join a Win with Black Women call. I texted her, asked her for some advice. She challenged me to do it on my own. Spent the remaining part of the year. We had some interns who were researching every Secretary of State website in all 50 states and the 6 territories to find any group that had the name Black men in their organization in the state registry. We then created that database. At the end of 2023, we started hosting calls. I paid for the Zoom on my own. There was no real thought of creating an organization because we just wanted to create a space for Black men to come together. And so at the beginning of July, some of the team that was here, I think we had a call back then that had maybe 15 people on. Maybe it was less than that early in July of 2024. And I really had a crisis of confidence thinking of, like, do I continue to do this? Then at the end of July, that Sunday, Vice President Harris gets into the race. Quentin, Blake, Roland, Bakari, we all get on a text chain. We decide to do it. By Monday, we stood up a link in a Zoom and added a larger Zoom link so that people could hop on. And it went from there. There was no bank account that Win with Black Men had. So for those that are looking for an FEC report on Win with Black Men, it doesn't exist because it was fully funded by brothers who just wanted to create space and create community out of our own pocketbooks. And those that gave that night, and I'll let Quentin dive more into this, there was a split that you could give directly to the campaign. So if you're looking for your contribution to be housed under Win with Black Men, you will never find it because as of that day, Monday, July 23rd, we did not have a bank account set up. It did not exist. So we partnered with others like Collective PAC, like Roland Martin of the Black Star Network, like Michael Blake over at Kairos Democracy Project, like Bakari Sellers to help build the community of 54,000 Black men so that they can come together and have that night. Quentin, I know we'll send an email to Greg Jackson. Thought it was disingenuous in the moment of a conversation to throw this out because I am very transparent. You're more than happy to email me. But Quentin, if you had any thoughts, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, thanks, Khalil. And I think with love, brothers, thank y'all for being here. We've been on for 2 hours now. We completely love questions around transparency and hey, what's going on? But don't ever question our integrity. We're just not gonna let that stand. So number one, when you give money to most candidates who are on the call, who are running as Democrats, you might do so through a company called Act Blue. And so the reason why Act Blue is under attack because they've been so effective at being able to support Democratic candidates, unlike anything we've ever seen in politics. And so the day we had the fundraiser and the call with 100,000 Black men, 40,000 Black men, we raised $1.34 million for Kamala Harris. When you give money for a candidate via Act Blue, what you're actually doing is giving money to Act Blue, and Act Blue gives that money to the candidate with your name as listed as a donor. And so there was not money given to Win with Black Men for the purpose of giving to Kamala. You're not going to go to the FEC and find a contribution from Win with Black Men and hell, even Collective PAC to Kamala. That money went directly to Act Blue and then directly to Kamala Harris for president in 2024. Now, one thing that we did, because we are operatives and we've been doing this work for over a decade, myself since the 2008 Obama campaign, we knew that, unfortunately, just being transparent, the people in charge of the Kamala Harris for president campaign were not going to commit to doing work organizing Black men and Black communities. It happens every time. If you, and I'm going to put it in the chat, the DNC report that just came out, a lot of controversy around it, but we encourage you to read it. One of the things that we know about it is they raised $1 billion and spent it in 107 days. If you do that math, it's a lot of money per day. And very little of that money was spent organizing Black men. So what we did during that historic call, and it's transparent because Roland was talking about it every 30 seconds, is we allowed brothers to give directly to the campaign or to give to Collective PAC or both, and that we would give money to go out and support the organizing of Black men and Black groups. And so we did. For folks that gave 100% to Kamala Harris, that money went directly to her. But if you didn't, that money was split between Kamala Harris for president and us. Again, the money went directly to Act Blue both times, but that money was then given from Act Blue to Kamala, and then some of it to Collective PAC. What Collective PAC did with the help of Win with Black Men, all of you and our organizers, is we asked Black men organizations to submit an application for mini grants. We had over, and I'm looking at it right now, we had over 167 applications come in from Black men groups, local groups doing work, some national, but mostly local or regional groups saying, hey, here's how I would spend 25K. Here's how I would spend 50K. Here's how I would spend 5 or 10K. And so we took those funds and gave them out as mini grants to over 40 organizations from around the country, ranging from $5,000 to $25,000. And we have the receipts for all that. So we did a report on this back in 2024. We're happy to do it again. And I understand that, we shouldn't explain that because we, whatever, but I just want to be clear with everybody. The Kamala Harris for President campaigns raised and spent $1 billion. Very little of that money went to organize our folks. I would encourage you all to ask questions of the Democratic Party, of the Democratic Party committees like the DCCC, the DSCC, many of the groups that ran independent expenditures. We know over $4 billion was spent helping elect Democrats in 2024. And I want us to not make the minor issues or minor questions major. And so folks that want to ask questions about $1.5 million, we're happy to have that conversation and talk about it. The majority of that went to Kamala Harris for president, and you can ask the campaign about that as well. But we gave money to Black male groups doing great work. We wish we had more money to do even bigger grants. But questions around the FEC, your contribution will be in the FEC report if it was over $200. the person asking the question I looked up gave a contribution of $50, and I think that $50 is really important. But again, don't question the integrity of myself, of Khalil, other Black men doing great work. Because listen, like, we could be doing other stuff, making a lot more money, but we're trying to serve our community, and support Black men and support Black political power. And so, don't want to take too much time, but I wanted to explain that, Khalil. And again, feel free to email us, send us some notes if you got more questions. We're happy to have the conversation, but like, please don't be disruptive about, you know, where'd the money go, because we've gone over that multiple times. Again, like, our integrity is top notch. So please don't do that. But happy to talk more in detail if folks have questions. Because again, this is the stuff that we need to know so that we all can do a better job of supporting Black candidates and Black organizing work happening around the country. That part is really important. So thanks.
No, thanks, you. And Nick, we're going to bring you up from South Carolina to close us out and talk in just a second. But to those that were, and I love the chat scene right now. I appreciate the love that Quentin and I and others who put this on are getting. And thank you to Chris Mosley or to Dietrich Bjorn. I don't want to talk about the money. What I find interesting is that we all came collectively together and raised $1.4 million in one night. That, as Quentin gave the breakdown of where the money went. But there is a firm that made $861 million in 2024. I would love Greg to call them out to see how much of that was spent on Black-owned organizations, firms, accountants, lawyers, grassroots organizing, mail firms, whatever it may be, so that they could do that engagement. What we're not going to do is then try to gut check, well, how much did Roland get? How much did Khalil get? How much did the Urban League? That is immaterial to us when you see an ecosystem that is making money off the backs of our votes. And what we're trying to do, myself, Quentin, and others, is really trying to make sure that the work is centered here. And so when I ask for your contribution, it's not going, personally, it's not going to Khalil's bank account. It is making sure that the Zoom can stay on, that we can send you emails, that we can research other candidates. We don't have money to do endorsements because we can't do texting campaigns or do direct mail or do a TV ad. It just doesn't exist. So we are literally trying to uplift Black men where they are. You're right. Chris Mosley said it. Amex got $44 million in fees alone. So, like, if we're quibbling over 1.4, that 80 to 90% of it went to the campaign. I appreciate you, Greg Jackson. Hopefully you've gone back and watched this towards the end, because you jumped off and didn't stick on for this. And for everybody who's watching, this is not the Greg Jackson who is running to be at-large city council member in Washington, D.C. This is another Greg Jackson. We support the Greg Jackson, and we love him for the work that he's doing to run for office in D.C. But we're going to close out tonight with an organizer on the ground. I'm going to bring him up, Nicholas Outen, if he comes on camera. He is going to tell us to end us tonight on the great work. Here he is. That has been going on the ground in South Carolina as an organizer. Nick, inspire us, leave us with, what did you see this past week that drove, on day one of early voting, over 55,000 people to go vote?
Yeah. No, thanks for having me. The one thing I can say is I've always learned, especially when it comes down to South Carolina, is that we've always had a rebellious streak. You know, we go against the grain. Sometimes that's for better. Sometimes that's been for worse. But we know historically we've been always at the center of some of the biggest political fights in this country. And sometimes we've been ahead. Sometimes we've been behind. We've been behind a lot of times, but we rarely ever sit quietly on them sidelines. And I think on the redistricting battle of what we saw, our Democrats, from Congressman Clyburn to State Representative Jermaine Johnson, who is currently running for governor, they were fighting. They were talking, they were engaging with our communities, making sure everybody knew what was going on. The biggest thing I think that we learned through this process was it wasn't the maps. Some of the most conservative Republicans in South Carolina, from our House speakers to our leader of the Senate, they broke with their own leadership, their entire party. They broke with all of the pressure that was coming down from them with Washington. We weren't the only state, of course, as you know, that dealt with this. And they questioned the rules. Can we really change the rules after people start voting? And these are folks that typically agree on everything else. But they said, hold on, this really does not feel right. And so for me, this was a true South Carolina moment. It wasn't a Democrat moment. It wasn't a Republican moment, but it was one of those moments that really brought people together. First day of early voting, 50,000 people. We almost hit that 50,000 threshold in terms of folks that came out and vote. I just got the final numbers from Friday. As of now, we just hit 150,000 early votes for
Wow.
the first week of early voting.
Wow.
First day of early voting, 46,000 voters cast the Democratic ballot. 10,000 of those ballots were Republicans. And so we set records. We broke records. In the history of South Carolina, I think early voting since we started here, 23 to 25,000 votes single day was the max that we've ever hit. Every day of this past week, we broke it. And so for me, it's one of those things that knowing that we don't have the infrastructure here, we don't have the money here in terms of our grassroots campaigns that are actually bringing the people out. You know, Representative Jermaine Johnson is running against two multi-millionaires. They've funding, well, one of them is funding their own campaign, pumped $2.5 million into it. And it's constantly spending. They're buying up all the airwaves, they're buying up all the radio. We're hitting the grounds. I just got in the house probably about an hour and a half ago from knocking doors, and we're seeing the momentum. We're knocking doors that people who are traditionally not engaged in the process or the cycle, they're paying attention. Folks that are not even on my list. You know, we go after everybody that votes typically in primaries, you know, but we've been adding people that are typically not engaged because they're engaged now. They're paying attention. They're like, all right, if you can change the rules this quickly to get something you want done, to change the map, what can we do? Can y'all not call a special session and say, hey, let's suspend the gas tax? You know, affordability is coming up. You know, it's costing $8 for a gallon of milk. You know, we're paying $4 to $5 for gas. So why is it that you can call a special session to try to push a map, but you're not willing to do anything to change our individual lives? You're seeing Republicans break ranks now. You know, traditional moderate Republicans in South Carolina. South Carolina is a state that's 48% Republican, roughly 40% Democrat. The rest are independents on paper. These folks don't come out and vote. But we're seeing right now that is if we start building the infrastructure that we stood up really, really fast for Jamie Harrison in 2020, and we actually build upon it and keep it consistent, engaged year round, we'll be able to actually start flipping some of these seats. Because all politics here starts local. We have a lot of Democrats elected at House, on the House level. We used to have more, but we've lost seats because we didn't have the infrastructure for it. People weren't engaged. We have county councils, mayors, school board members, Democrats. We just can't turn out enough people in traditional cycles, midterms or presidential, to make sure that we can actually flip some seats. So the biggest thing here we need in South Carolina is resources. You know, you're looking at a three-way governor race. You have a black man running for governor in the state of South Carolina against two multi-millionaires. And the momentum is there. People talk about electability all the time. People are talking about, oh, well, he couldn't raise this much money. Well, the white Democrats in South Carolina are going to spend money with the rich white folk that are running. That's just the way it goes. It's the South. What do you expect? That doesn't mean that Jermaine Johnson is electable. It's just y'all are choosing to give your money to certain people.
Nick, I mean, you couldn't say it better, man. And the chat is loving you for it right now. There's a question from Dietrich. How many precinct chairs in South Carolina? What's the percentage of them that are black? As you're thinking through that, if you don't already, let me know.
Precinct chairs. So the one thing that we do not do well here, I know we tried to reorganize our precincts 2 years ago. We tried to do it again this time. You probably maybe have 10 across the state. If you look at Richland County, has the largest black population. If you look at Congressional District 6, up and down has the largest black population as a whole, Congressman Clyburn's district. Charleston County and Richland County accounts for 25% of Democratic votes across the state in terms of primaries. And so that entire cluster will give you kind of where all the black votes lie. But a lot of the black folks, unfortunately to say it, but a lot of the black folks that were chairs or were organizing, a lot of them have died out. The younger generation is not engaged the way that they were in the past. And we're missing the mark in terms of getting the youth to actually care about politics, to be engaged with the process and see how it affects their lives.
And I think Dietrich is in the chat raising some good questions. And we're going to close out here, everybody. Thank you all for staying with us who are still on and still watching it live. We need you all to, and I know Quentin and others, and Nick and I text often about this. We are talking about a re-engagement of Freedom Summer 2.0, where we are going to be training folks to be poll watchers at your county, your municipal levels in your communities, as we're getting ready for November. I think we are trying to make sure that we understand how critical this election is. I talk about it often. I saw it today. I was leaving a funeral for a dear friend, and his wife had passed. And I was making a U-turn coming around, and 2 blocks over happened to be about 8 National Guard troops. And it was a black funeral. And my mind went to, do I need to text? Do I need to call? Like, is something going to happen? Should I be worried in any way, shape, or form? And my concern is that we need to register, we need to listen, we need to educate, we need to register, and then we need to mobilize our community in order to get out and vote. So at the end of this call, there's 56 of you still on who are watching. I think in the chat, maybe I know there are more online who are watching live. The goal here is, if we could, I don't use non-Greg Jackson brother out of DC, but Greg Jackson, who joined in the chat earlier, asking a question. We're going to use his question to spur some engagement. If brother Greg Jackson could get $50 in 2024, what if the 56 of you right now took the link that is in the chat and gave $50 tonight? That's $2,500. That helps us make sure we can keep our Zoom link going, we can keep our emails going, our research going, just for a little bit longer. Majority of, and I think this is why it pained Quentin and I so much, majority of our organizations right now, we are working on fumes. That money that you saw went out from the $1.7 billion that was spent on the hard side, and let alone the soft side, that didn't get reciprocated over to us. So we're not chilling at a second or third house in Nantucket. We're not in Portugal. We're not hanging out and just doing whatever it is that we want to do. We are doing this work daily in fighting to organize, whether we're working with Chris Mosley in Birmingham, Alabama, whether we're working with brothers in like Emil Washington in New Orleans, or Gary Chambers, whether we're working with good brothers in Florida. I know, and we didn't get a chance. We're going to try to do it next week. The 20th Congressional District that has just changed. Whether we're working with brothers from South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, Arkansas, Kentucky, Mississippi, and others, we need your help. So if you have the opportunity, go ahead, click that link, make a donation tonight, match Greg Jackson's energy that came on here, and give us $50. Thank you, Quentin, for finding that out. I hope he watches to this point, because we're not calling him out to be negative. We just want to make sure the same enthusiasm that you want to check us, you give that same enthusiasm to the organizations that don't invest in us. Q, go ahead. I saw you come up.
Nah, look, I mean, we love transparency. But I think to your point, it's like, what's the intention of it? And so, yes, hold us accountable, hold yourselves accountable, hold all these other groups accountable who have 100 times more resources than we do to do this important work. So I'm with you, bro.
Love all of you. I know there's a lot of questions in the chat. I'm going to do my best to get them answered before next Sunday. We look forward to having you on next Sunday. As always, thank you for being here, brothers. Really appreciate you spending part of your Sunday night. I got to go get some Mind Coins from my daughter and make sure she gets those on. No, it's not coming out of Women Black Men contributions. That's my whole pocket. But I got to make sure she gets ready for bed. Good night, everybody. Thank you. See you here next Sunday.